And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. Joe DeLeone and Sean Anderson, 2 former college football players from the University of Rhode Island. We've got plenty to talk about from NFL Week 9. I've got a fun game that I didn't tell Sean we're going to be playing. Basically, we're going to be picking who we think is the worst team in the NFL. There's no right answer. All of that, plus Dak's banged up. The Cowboys stink. Lions, they look freaking great. Before we get to that, though, Sean, can you share with our listeners a word from BetOnline?
I hope Joe's game revolves around a certain tankathon graphic that's been circulating. If it does, you should go to BetOnline and take some bets against these bad teams, against the bad Carolina Panthers, against the awful New Orleans Saints. The Bears suck again. There's a lot of bad teams in the NFL this year. Bet against them. You're going to win some money. I did. And I did it at BetOnline. They have the earliest odds to in-game live betting. BetOnline provides you with all the action, the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on everything football, NBA, NHL, entertainment, and political props. You can do it on a tiny phone because you don't know how to hang a TV. While you're watching the game, you can switch on over to go to BetOnline, and you can play some bets live. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.
How hard is it to put that TV back up there?
It's literally the simplest thing.
You just hang it on?
You literally hang it on, and then you click the safety button.
You're going to come back one day, and there's going to be a giant hole in that wall.
As clumsy as I am, I've been able to do it pretty gracefully.
Sean, first headline that we have today coming out of the NFL, the New Orleans Saints, they fired their head coach, Dennis Allen, something that kind of felt like it should have happened a while ago. 7 straight losses after we, at the beginning of the year, were talking about, hey, maybe this Saints team, maybe they got something this year. No, they didn't. They didn't have anything. Chris Olave goes to the hospital. It was as big of a mess as it could have been against the Panthers on Sunday. Darren Rizzi, former Rhodey Ram, taking over as the interim coach. Got a weird number of texts about this. Very weird number of texts like, hey, how cool is that? I'm like, cool, I don't know the guy. Doesn't mean because we played Rhode Island football that we know Darren Rizzi. But, Sean, this was something that should have happened so long ago. This Saints team, outside of the hot start this year, they looked like a mess for most of the years that he was leading this team, especially last year. We allowed 2 weeks against bad teams. Shroud our judgment and forget about the poor play that they put out there when Dennis Allen was the head coach, not to mention the fact that he's never really been a good head coach. One of those guys who's a great coordinator, and the most hilarious part is that the last time that he was fired, Derek Carr was also his quarterback. Derek Carr is the kiss of death, and now this man is on the streets looking for a new job.
This is just great. It's so great watching the Saints team collapse week after week. And this was a truly comedic game. To see the Carolina Panthers opt out of possibly the number 1 pick of the NFL's NFL draft.
We're going to get to that later.
Oh, okay.
Get to that later.
But to do that and just to send Dennis Allen and his weird rolling backpack packing out of New Orleans, hilarious. Michael Thomas screaming on Twitter about Derek Carr, tragic and hilarious. Chris Olave's brother chiming in on that. Love to see the family get involved. I know it was a scary hit. That's rough. No one's sitting here taking glee in an injury for a player. I promise I'm not. But this is a disaster in New Orleans. The culture of the team is obviously bad. You have former stars, family of current stars, knocking the current quarterback, almost assuming that he tried to hurt his number 1 wide receiver with a hospitable ball. That's not good.
We have to unpack that for a brief second here. So there was the speculation. Michael Thomas has way too much time on his hands, by the way. I would love a live look-in camera on what Michael Thomas is doing. He's probably in some large apartment or condo sitting on his couch because he was like the first person to tweet when Dennis Allen was fired. Nobody knew it happened except for Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas was like within seconds. It was like he was the one who broke the news that the firing happened. He was so quick. But the real reason here, he's not trying to kill Chris Olave. It wasn't deliberate. Derek Carr's just that bad. Derek Carr's just that bad of a quarterback that he's not able to read and notice, hey, if I put this ball in position for my receiver, he's going to get smoked. No quarterback does it deliberately. I think Michael Thomas was completely overreacting to what he was trying to depict here. But Derek Carr is just, he's done. He shouldn't be a starting quarterback in the NFL anymore.
Oh, he's right on the brink. I think that he can start in the NFL.
He hasn't been, when was the last time that he was good?
2021. It's been 3 years. He had a 9-win season. I don't even know. I can't even remember if he was the main quarterback during New Orleans' 9-win season or if that was Taysom Hill stepping up and stepping in.
I don't think it was him.
Yeah, he's kind of tragic. I am embarrassed for myself and the show after the first 2 weeks of the season. But we were watching. Actually, I'm not. Because we were watching legitimate good offense those first 2 weeks.
He was not in New Orleans in 2021.
No, 2022, I think they had 9 wins.
He was also not in New Orleans.
Oh, Derek Carr.
Derek Carr's best season was 10-7 in 2021 with the Raiders.
Yeah, that was the big year with Devontae Adams. Or maybe the year right before. Regardless, the New Orleans Saints are tragic. I love it. I can't get enough. I hope they lose every single game. I hope they bust on their first round draft.
For a second.
No, I won't because this is my one big sports rival. Okay, I wish I cared more about hating the Phillies or hating the Flyers. I wish I cared more about any type of basketball rivalry. No, but I have grown to really love my rivalry against the New Orleans Saints, and I think I've been pretty unbiased up till now. But I take great pride in watching them piss down their legs. I love seeing their meltdown. I love seeing Atlanta fraudulently become 6-3 on the backs of luck and a bad Cowboys team. But this is a spectacular day for me. I was sitting at work. The notification came in. I was tired, a bit eepy, and then I saw that notification. It was like I got a shot of adrenaline back from a drug overdose. It was incredible. It was ethereal. I loved it.
Well, actually, I would argue you're not a true hater because if you were a true hater, you would have been hoping that Dennis Allen would stay for as long as possible, and they just keep giving him shots.
No, because I want
you don't get the layers.
I want them to hire Nick Sirianni after this when he gets fired, or Brian Dable.
I, as a Notre Dame fan, my true biggest hatred towards the school is obviously the University of Southern California.
Why?
I hope that Lincoln Riley is there for the rest of his career because he's just going to continually underperform, and then he'll do enough that they won't fire him. But no, you don't understand. You're not a true hater.
No, I
understand.
Not a true hater I like seeing a constant mess. I like seeing a 30-year rebuild. That's what I want to see them do. And I hope Notre Dame sticks with Marcus Freeman for the next 30 years. You guys can really go 30.
So speaking of a 30-year rebuild, though, Austin Gale pointed this out on Twitter. This is the worst coaching opening for this upcoming cycle. Like, nobody should want this coaching opening. $52 million cap hit for Derek Carr. Chris Olave is probably going to want to trade, and I believe their overall cap situation is a shit show. The roster itself, inconsistent offensive line, they overpaid an aging running back and Alvin Kamara, which wasn't really totally warranted. And Saints fans, I'm sure you can go get pissed at that and say that, Kamara, he's an all-time Saint. He's got to stick with the Saints. Well, you don't pay a running back that's at the end of his career to extend his contract. Derrick Henry's the exception, which we're going to talk about later. I don't know anyone who's going to willingly want to step into this. There are plenty of openings every single year that are just tantalizing, just perfect opportunities for coaches that are looking to take over. And it's why a lot of times you will see coaches like Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, who'll take a year off and then come back. Mike McCarthy did it and then stepped into a worse situation, which was hilarious. But guys will take a year off in order to not force themselves into spots like this. This is a terrible job. Falcons' job was a great job with the timing that they took it. Still managed to blunder that offseason. Separate conversation.
Easy.
But no one is going to want this situation.
Screw you. Darnell Mooney was a gem. I'm
talking about the Michael Penix draft pick again.
Screw you. We got our QB1 for the future.
It's a great draft pick.
It's now looking good. Revisionist history. It's looking good.
I love Michael Penix, and I think that Michael Penix is going to be great. But if you had Dallas Turner right now, wouldn't you be a little bit happier?
No, he wouldn't have worked in Atlanta. Pass rushers don't work in Atlanta. I keep trying to tell you. It doesn't happen.
Idiotic.
It doesn't happen. They've had one 10-plus sack defensive lineman since 2008.
That doesn't mean you
John
you
Abraham.
just stop.
Yeah,
Okay,
they
how long did
gone.
the Commanders go without getting a correct quarterback? Does that mean that they just stop trying to draft quarterbacks? They just draft punters and put them back there?
Yeah. Eventually, they'll stumble onto one. Maybe.
So what are you just going to put safeties at edge rusher?
If I could have Jesse Bates playing safety and defensive end, I would. But to your point on the Saints, it is super undesirable. I think they were like $20 million under the cap before the season started. Old Cam Jordan is old on defense. They don't have young pieces. Old Tyrann Mathieu is old. Marshawn Lattimore is still fantastic at corner. I will always give him respect as he is one of the most underappreciated defensive backs in the NFL. He's old, though. Demario Davis, old now. They don't have the young pieces on defense to really carry you or to get by with some cheap cap and some nice cheap linebackers or defensive linemen. They don't have that. It's going to be a disaster. I hope they go winless. I am so excited to see what the New Orleans Saints bring to football.
Another disaster is the Las Vegas Raiders, who can't seem to do anything right. They got their asses kicked 41-24 against the Bengals. The Bengals, they're merchants of dominating bad football teams. Joe Burrow had a fantastic game, but Luke Getsy, womp womp, he gets fired. That was quick. Offensive coordinator firings under a first-year head coach is pretty crazy work. And also, we got to admit here, this is Antonio Pierce. I get it that the offensive performance to the start of the season through 9 weeks was not good. But are we really going to blame it on Luke Getsy? You got Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell back there. I understand that he might not be the guy that you want to lead the team in the future, that's going to run things, and maybe there was disagreements, but this feels like a total scapegoat hiring that you're just kind of panning the room. You're like, who needs to get fired? Oh, Luke, we need to get rid of you and see if we can spark something. Just seems stupid.
This whole Raiders offense has been a catastrophe. What the hell happened with Zamir White? I thought he was pretty good last year. Can't run the rock with him. Okay. Michael Mayer, buried, bust. The best.
Brock Bowers has been pretty good.
Brock Bowers has been stellar. He is I think, maybe the number one fantasy tight end. I think I got him in the 11th round. He's been very good. They found a star there. Other than that, offensive line, not full of stars. Quarterbacks, probably the 40th and 41st best quarterbacks in the league. You got them both on your team. You tried to start them both. I think they've both been injured at some point in this league. The defense, a couple pieces. What did you expect? The roster creation this offseason was terrible. I can't believe Devontae Adams actually stuck it out for the first couple weeks of the year. It was incredible to think that he was so good of a soldier to that team, to think that he was going to rally and we were going to win some games. They're awful. They're god-awful. I'm glad they're making changes. I think they're going to tank it up, try to get a good pick for a quarterback. They need it because this whole experiment, I think Antonio Pierce has 1 year. Next year, no matter who they have, it's a make-or-break year for him because this is such ugly, bad football. And a team that does play scrappy and that does have a leader in Max Crosby, to go out there and just be this bad, unacceptable.
I really hope they don't bail on Antonio Pierce this quickly because
I think he's good.
I think he could be a good coach, but that would just continually perpetuate the incompetence of that franchise, that they just keep firing coaches. And I know that the Gruden how hilarious would it be if they brought back Gruden? Those videos, by the way, get me going every single time.
I can't get enough. I mean, do you think who's
producing them?
Yeah. Who's writing those?
He's writing them. But who's producing them? You kidding me?
George Kittle, heartbreaker, making me fall in love.
He's
not writing those.
Creative.
No,
have you seen his
whiteboard?
Did you watch those quarterback spotlight or not spotlight? There was quarterback camp things that he used to do with the college guys.
I do.
He was very creative and entertaining in those. Him as a color commentator, he was extremely creative. I think you're giving him a little too much.
Not enough credit. I'm just saying this is new wave internet stuff, and he is an old school football dummy.
I think someone's walking him through it a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not saying he's hitting the cue himself, but I can't imagine that he's sitting down there writing little scripts and funny pieces for himself.
Cowboy season looks like it is in dire straits. 27-21 loss to the Atlanta Falcons. Oh, look at that. The Falcons won, and they also covered in this situation. That was my only correct bet this week. Problems, though, for Dallas. Ezekiel Elliott, healthy scratch, didn't play. Dak Prescott gets banged up. It seems like there's not clarity at the current moment on his health situation, but I don't see a path really for this Cowboys team to turn it around halfway through the year. They would need to get a complete resurgence offensively in order for them to re-enter the playoff picture. I don't see a spot or a way that they'd be a wildcard team. They're miles behind the Philadelphia Eagles, who are starting to hit their stride a bit since Sirianni yelled at a fan or a group of fans. I don't know what to do here. I think that you have to fire Mike McCarthy and start over as much as you can. They really should start trading. They really should start moving pieces, but I don't think that Jerry Jones is the type of general manager, decision maker to do that because he's extremely stubborn.
This team is so much should be better than this record and their performances. I was actually the most confident I've been going into a week as a Falcons fan this week, playing the Dallas Cowboys, because I know how ass they are. I know they're bad, and I know it's not all Dak Prescott's fault. He's got CeeDee Lamb, and he needs CeeDee Lamb to have 15 catches and 150 yards plus, and maybe 2 touchdowns for them to have a shot. Okay, Jake Ferguson, step up maybe. We're going to have 7 catches for you, but then where's the rest of the distribution going? Is it all going to Rico Dowdle? Is it going to Zeke? No, you can't make it to meetings, and you're not that good anyway still. It was total incompetence in the offseason. It's total incompetence midseason. Mike McCarthy should have been fired last season, but maybe, Joe, we're seeing this thing completely backwards, right? We're all talking about Jerry is the fool. Jerry's old and doddering, and he's got too much of a hand in all the decisions. Maybe he's been around the game so long, and he is actually so smart that he predicted that this season was going to be a total wash. We'll pay Dak this year, fine. We'll get that out of the way. We'll bite the bullet. We'll pay CD this year, fine. Bite that bullet. We're going to be god-awful. But we still have some bones. We still have a good quarterback that can be a top 10 guy. We still have a top 5 wide receiver. I don't think
that they had that approach when they were making those decisions.
I'm just saying at this point, if I'm Jerry, I'm leaning into it. I knew this was going to be a rough year. You know what? But we're ready for 2025. And we're a little bit. It's not as gravelly. But if I was him, I'd say this year was going to be a disaster because it's god-awful. They are a bad team that can't play defense, that can't cover. Trayvon Diggs looks slow. The safeties are bad. The linebackers aren't flow. Demarion Overshown is the only real player they got on defense without Micah Parsons right now.
See, so here's the thing. I don't think that they came into the season at all thinking that they were going to be bad. And I think that's what set them up for failure, is that they thought that they were going to be better than they actually were. The decisions to give these big contracts to Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb were because they weren't looking forward. It was like, we got to get these guys paid now. We need to get them settled, and we need them to be ready to go start the season. And it was done so late and last minute that that there wasn't the proper degree of preparation being done in the offseason. The draft picks leave a lot to be desired. It was just step after step after step that did not feel like it was fully thought through. I know that we've talked about how Jerry Jones needs to step down and he needs to pass on the general manager duties. It's something that's not going to happen until that man is dead. I sincerely doubt that he is going to allow for somebody else to make those decisions. But the more important thing that Cowboys fans need to understand, there's nowhere to look for optimism. There's none. This team is going to continue to get worse. You're tied up to a ton of big contracts. And the only way that you get better is by moving quality players. There's no value for Diggs, probably.
Nope.
Micah Parsons probably your best trade chip, and I don't know if they would try to move on.
I don't even know if he would even want to come back to Dallas if he wants to be a part of a rebuild. I'm starting to think about it. The deepest trade value position that they have is the offensive line. I wouldn't trade Guyton.
Zach Martin's just going to retire.
Yeah, I would try to trade Martin. I'd try to see if he wants to go get a ring somewhere, get a first rounder from an actual competitor. That's the only guy I think they have. Terrence Steele isn't good enough for a first rounder.
Tyler Smith's young.
He's certified. And I know that they can draft another a good offensive lineman, but it's not going to be a one first round pick that saves this team next year. They need multiple first round picks. They need to get maybe 2 second round picks and really find some gems. You can't get by with adequate draft. This needs to be a massive, massive offseason, opposed to the just underwhelming offseason they had this past year.
Well, we get to see two running backs that the Cowboys could have pursued in the offseason that have had great years. I want to give a quick shout to Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, who have had amazing seasons so far. They've been super productive. This past week, we watched the Ravens dominate the Broncos 41-10 against one of the best defenses in the NFL. And then Saquon had one of the craziest spin move reverse hurdles that we'll ever see in our lives. I just want to bring this up, Sean, because it's really freaking fun to watch and to see two running backs at a position that everybody has crowned as dead, two of the most unique athletes in the sport that are actually on teams that are willing to use them. I'm removing my frustrations as a Giants fan for a second here. I am just excited as a football fan to see Derrick Henry running through people and putting up stupid yards and to be on pace for 2,000 yards again at the age of 30. And for Saquon to actually be playing meaningful football and to have guys blocking for him in order for him to create in space instead of meeting people in the hole at the line of scrimmage, and all of his moves are being used up when he's 2 yards behind the ball where he got the ball and then he's getting tackled for loss or at the line of scrimmage.
It's a delight to see these guys go the way that they are. I know that Henry is currently pacing for the running back triple crown in the league this year, which is phenomenal. I mean, Baltimore, it was a perfect landing spot. You couldn't have found I couldn't have pitched him a better spot for Derrick Henry to go, and they're nailing it, and it's fun to see. I'm glad that we share the love of running backs that we do. And look, I actually heard a very rational conversation from a Giants fan and an Eagles fan today in the workroom while I was downing my second plate of free tacos. And the Giants fan was saying, I'm just happy that he's probably happy, he being Saquon. He was mentioning that, no. That was rational because he said he wouldn't have done anything for the Giants. This team is so bad. They just opted to pay Daniel Jones instead, and it would have just been that Saquon Barkley would not have the Giants at 4 wins right now. He would not have earned them another 2 wins just based on his talent. But Philly, they're right on that bubble of success that adding him, it boosts them. It really does get them wins. It got them wins earlier in the season. And now, I mean, that play, the reverse hurdle, I've never in my life seen anything like it. I think that the closest thing I could see in just pure awe and shock is Billy Sims hurdling somebody, kicking a cornerback in the chest, and then continuing with a run for another 6 yards. That's the only other play that I could put in that box of unfathomable athleticism. What a freak that guy is. Shame on Giants. Shame on the New York Giants for burning 4 years of his career.
Sean, the Lions have proved to be maybe the most legit outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, clearly the leader in the NFC, to win the Super Bowl this year with the way that they played against the Green Bay Packers. It was a torrential downpour. It was a freaking mess. It looked like nobody wanted to be there, but the Lions looked like they were willing and ready to fight for all 4 quarters. That's what they've done every single game. This is their best start since 1956. And more importantly, Jared Goff, who everybody has already, or at one point, completely wrote him off as being a successful quarterback. There were mock drafts for the Lions a couple of years ago. And of course, we know that people doubted Dan Campbell and said that he was a bad hire. Look at the result that we're seeing. But Jared Goff, 82.2% completion percentage since week 3. That is the highest over a 6-game span in NFL history. He continues to break records. And the craziest part is he did that in a game where it was pouring for a guy that is on a team where he plays inside of a dome. That was a talking point this week. People were saying, is Jared Goff going to play well? He doesn't really do so well outside. Oh, it's going to be raining. Is that going to impact things? I guess not. Baller, Jared Goff, this Lions team, they can't be stopped. Even without Aiden Hutchinson, it seems like they don't have any weaknesses.
They're far and away the best team in the NFC. Far and away. They are phenomenal. Goff, I think 14 touchdowns to 4 picks on the year. Here's what I would do if I was the Lions. This week, I would go to Ben Johnson with $50 million and say, stay our OC. We'll give you $25 million for 2 years. And if we don't win the Super Bowl in the next 2 years, we'll up it to $75 million. He's too valuable. And this is like a team that is on the cusp. And I think he does have a massive part to play in it. His offensive scheme is perfect. We've seen what some of these players do in a scheme like this, that where he is truly highlighting the best out of every single skill guy on that offense. He's getting the best out of Goff. He's getting the best out of Montgomery and Gibbs. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's getting the best out of him. Every single player is playing at their maximum capacity. I'm doing everything I possibly can to have this guy stick in Detroit. I don't want to see him go to Arizona next year. I don't want to see him go to some deadbeat franchise like the Jacksonville Jaguars. Oh, he's going to resuscitate Trevor Lawrence. No, Trevor Lawrence isn't good enough to be resuscitated by Ben Johnson. He's going to be a...
No, he absolutely is good enough to be resuscitated by Ben Johnson. Actually, I would love that. Him and the Jaguar with the Jaguars, that would actually be a very good fit.
It wouldn't matter. The Jaguars would maybe make a wild
Okay, instead of projecting something that's not going to happen, I will say that Ben Johnson, him ending up in Jacksonville, probably makes the most sense. Please do not go to New Orleans. Please do not go to New Orleans.
Don't do that, and don't waste your time with Trevor Lawrence. He is a bum. I think you should stay with the Lions, get your ring, and then decide it. I always am going to knock Kyle Shanahan for building a fantastic offense in Atlanta, and they go to the Super Bowl, they blow it, right? Everyone knows they blow it really bad. And then he just jets off to San Fran. And then the offense was never the same. And then I know he built some good offenses in San Francisco, but he still hasn't got it done. I think retaining an offensive coordinator is so important, and it's very hard. It's so hard to do in the NFL because OC money and head coach money is very, very different. But I would do everything in my power if I was the Lions to try to keep this group as together as possible. They are thriving.
He's going to be gone this offseason.
Oh, you're
Sean.
sick, man.
What do you? I mean,
I know.
He stayed for his last season.
Can we root for something? I'm rooting.
It's literally
for
not good. There's literally nothing to root for. It's not going to. He's earned every opportunity to get a head coaching gig, and he's going to have good opportunities to take up. The Jacksonville situation is better than you're giving it credit for.
It's not.
However, there are, Sean, a lot of terrible, terrible teams in the NFL this year. This needs to be talked about. I don't think I can remember a time in which that we've had this many bad football teams. And it's not like we've got a bunch of 0-16 teams. The weirdest part is we have this ugly cluster of 2-win football teams. So not horrible, not like absolute the worst teams ever. Slightly good enough to get 2 wins, but bad enough to be this far below 500. Of the teams right now that are all tied for the possibility to get the first overall pick, you have 7 teams. The New York Giants, the New England Patriots, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Cleveland Browns, the New Orleans Saints, the Carolina Panthers, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's 2 teams that are 2-6 that are right there on the cusp as well, the Miami Dolphins and the Tennessee Titans. So I ask this question here, Sean. Which of these teams is actually the worst out of this mess of teams that we're looking at? My picks would be, here are the 2 that I think I would go with. I would go with the New York Giants because they're completely hapless on offense, albeit their defense continues to break random stats for pressure rates that are just insanely frustrating to find out. Or I'd go with the Titans because I feel like the Titans just have nothing going for them.
I think the best out of this group is the New England Patriots, or the team with the most future. I think Drake May.
They have the most future. I just don't know if they're going to finish. Yeah, they'll probably finish like the 5th
I think
pick.
the Patriots, they end up with that 4 to 5 range. I think the Raiders are the worst team in the NFL. Then I would follow with the Carolina Panthers because they are just tragic. I know they just beat the Saints. It doesn't mean anything to me. And then, I would have to go with the Tennessee Titans. I don't know what the direction is. Keep drafting offensive linemen. That's what they need to do. Shore that up. Maybe you hit on a quarterback eventually. Try to get another free agent running back, make it work. But the Dolphins look better with Tua. The Browns are a better team with Winston. The Giants are going to be a juggernaut next year, so I'm not counting them out. So it's definitely for me the Raiders. They have nothing.
The craziest part that like this year, and you're not as like locked in with the draft stuff as Ryan and I are with talking about this, but this probably isn't the year that you would want to have the first overall pick. Like I'd rather have the 3rd overall pick. I would rather let all the other teams overthink and miscalculate this. And I would also allow for everyone to freak out. And then you could sit there at 3 and say if you're one of these teams like the Titans and you're thinking about getting a quarterback, you're in a position to be patient and to wait and see, Does it go quarterback 1-2? I don't think that's going to happen. You could be a trade chip if you feel like you missed out on the guy that you were waiting for at that third spot. Having the first overall pick in this class is going to be a curse. It is going to be a draft class. I'm promising you folks this. With whoever goes first overall, it will not end well at all. It will end disastrously. And I don't know if it's just because said player will not pan out, or just because that there is going to be a massive stupid trade up. I'm just trying to paint the picture here that there are so many multitudes of outcomes. We could have a Carolina Panthers situation this year, which I think is going to happen, where someone's going to make the move. They're going to get super aggressive. They're going to trade a bunch of picks for a quarterback who's not worth mortgaging your future. And then the following draft, when they want to have those picks, they will not have them. This is going to be a very messy draft. You don't want the first overall pick.
Which quarterback is most likely to get traded up for that number one pick?
I don't think it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, because I think that from what we've found out, and actually not found out, what we know what Deion Sanders has publicly said, that Shedeur Sanders wants to make that decision and they want to have control over that decision, which is smart. Like, get ahead of that now.
Yeah.
Bryce Young wishes he made
smartest year to do it right now, looking at these teams.
Some of these teams that we've talked about with the directionless front offices that they've had, Shedeur Sanders is not going to want to play for Tennessee Titans. Shedeur Sanders is not going to want to play for a team like the Cleveland Browns, maybe the Raiders, maybe one of those types.
There's
of
some theories about the Raiders. When they lose, he sends out a tweet, thank God. So it's possible that he does want to play in Vegas.
I don't think he's going to be the first overall pick, because he's going to want to control his future in that situation. I think the world for Cam Ward to be the first overall pick is certainly plausible, and I hate that for him because I don't want him to end up on the worst team. But I also at the same time think there is a very strong chance that we get a Travon Walker type of decision, where Travon Walker's starting to play well. Like, he's made some big plays.
He's doing fine. I know his pressure rate is up this year, way more than his first couple years.
And he had that crazy return this week where he trucked through an entire offense running towards the end zone. But he wasn't worth the first overall pick in that draft. That wasn't necessarily disastrous, but it wasn't a great pick. So what I'm trying to talk about here is if it goes edge rusher, there's a really strong chance it doesn't end up being quarterback, that we watch a team overthink that and take like a guy like Mykel Williams, who's a good football player, very similar to Travon Walker, who is tremendous against the run, but doesn't have the pass rush production. Or
you don't think it's Pierce Jr.? You don't think he's getting lofted in there?
No, I think that Abdul Carter and James Pierce Jr. are going to have phenomenal pre-draft processes. I think that they're going to have the production through the final stretch of the season that we're already seeing that is going to warrant them being the first overall pick. But whoever is picking is going to overthink it, and they're going to take somebody random like Mykel Williams.
I'd take Will Campbell. If I was sitting there on an island.
Tell Ryan that he will lose his mind. He's not a big fan of Will Campbell.
Oh, that is
not first overall pick. He thinks he's a first round pick. He doesn't think he's a top 10 pick.
What?
He has Kelvin Banks over him. I actually kind of agree with him.
I don't like Kelvin Banks' feet. And Kelvin Banks leans at the hips too much. That is jarring to hear about that. I got to start tuning in. If that's what he's saying about Will Campbell, that's crazy. What? This is the safest pick in the draft. Will Campbell, left tackle.
Yeah, but the safest pick in the draft is not always the one that you want to take first overall.
Well, I'd rather take that guy than bomb. I'd rather take that guy than have a bustola first overall.
Well, I'm not saying that you're going to end up with a bust first overall, but I think that because there's no clear answer, whenever there's no clear answer, teams always go with the really weird safe pick. It's not going to be an offensive lineman. It's going to be, I really think that there is a trajectory here that Mykel Williams ends up being the first.
Was he spooked over Jake Long in 2007? Like I get it. Or Fisher to the.
Well, you have Ryan's phone number. Ask him.
I'm gonna have a call with him. I'm gonna call him after this show, 10 o'clock at night.
Don't bother.
I'm
He's got
ask
kids.
They're gonna hear the truth from Uncle Sean. They're gonna hear some real words.
That's a bold thing to call yourself an uncle of his kids. That's a wild thing. All right.
What am I going to call male associate Sean?
Loose acquaintance Sean. All right, that's going to be our show. At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio. We'll talk to you folks later. At Hack City Pod as well. I always do that. I always forget to add 201-834-4308 to leave a voicemail. It's been a long 2 days.
I know.
I have had a total of an hour break over the past 2 days. I'm going to bed. Good night, everybody.